you get scanned when you walk in. If it's a gang member, it tells the doorman it is, but it says don't stop him.
Right.
And then he walks in, and then 15 minutes later, the gang task force comes with like 18 guys in combat gear almost.
Wow.
And they walk up to the guy with the computer, and they're like, "Oh, this is you. Pay your bill and get the fuck out." Like 30,000 escorts in Vegas.
There's that many?
Yeah.
Jeez. I know they chill in the casinos at night, right?
They chill in the casinos at night, but it's one of those things. It's like, when I first was here, I couldn't tell the difference between normal girls.
Yeah, I hear that story all the time.
Oh man. And so I would just always assume every girl was an escort. So
Welcome back to the Digital Social Hour. I'm your host, Sean Kelly. I'm here with my guest today, Derek Vonner. How's it going, man?
It's going well, man. Going well.
Yeah, so you're pretty low key. So you're gonna have to tell people exactly what you do and how you got started.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. Obviously, I used to be in the nightlife industry, starting in maybe 1999, and then I moved to San Francisco and ran 5 different nightclubs. And what happened was, it was right about the time that Facebook came together. And so one of the reasons that I've kept myself low key was because, the first meeting with Peter Thiel and who else was there?
Zuckerberg.
It was Sean Parker.
Okay.
And I think Sean Fanning was there originally.
Wow.
It's kind of interesting. So that was at a nightclub I ran.
They met at your club? That's insane.
Yeah, they got a table. It was pretty wild. I mean, we had like Derek Jeter when, it was close enough to 9/11 where he had Secret Service with him.
Right.
So
wow.
But yeah, it was pretty interesting, and it was actually Sean Parker that got me on Facebook originally. He convinced me to do it.
That's nuts.
Yeah, and then it was one of those things where right at that time everybody was sharing every personal detail, everything you could possibly imagine about their lives. It's not quite like that now, I don't think. I mean, people share intimate information on social media, but not really the same way.
Right.
And I watched several situations where there was litigations and things that happened where Facebook exposed them for it's a timeline. I mean, like anything else on the internet.
Yeah, they got a lot of information on people, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and then I got involved. I stopped doing operations around 2010, and I got involved with just more consulting on hospitality businesses that were going through conflict.
Right.
And so, it's interesting because when 2008 happened, I went from never having a business dispute to, being in multiple litigations, going through just, the legal system, which is, I'm sure you've experienced a little bit yourself, which is crazy and broken, and
yeah, it's all pay to play.
Yeah, it doesn't work at all. And then when we finally get to court on these projects, the judge is like, "Oh, had no idea how to award damages for a hospitality business because there's so many factors on what can go wrong, especially a nightclub. I mean, a nightclub, by the time we get to court, they've had a bad operator, they've had shootings, they've had everything else you can imagine. So it was pretty interesting. But what happened was I started consulting on other nightclubs, people that were going in through partnership disputes, or maybe they had a shooting outside or a shooting inside. And I had such a good relationship with the police and the city that they actually asked me to help a couple of different times. And that's actually what got me out of that business and changed, my perspective a lot.
Right.
I went to a hearing because there was a club in San Francisco. There was an assassination, like somebody got shot twice in the head with a silencer. Like,
jeez.
Yeah, it was like a gang hit.
Wow.
And the head of the entertainment commission at the time called me and asked me if I could help them reopen, make sure they have cameras, make sure they have like some procedures in place. And then right before I go to this hearing, because it's a public hearing, I'd already spoken to to the police at that point. We'd already come up with some plan. And right before I go to this hearing, she's like, hey, can you find an ID scanning company? So I go online. I find a company that I think is cool. It looked really good to me. I contacted them. They sent me the information. And I walk into this hearing, and I as part of my presentation, I presented the ID scanning company. So what happened was the entire city of San Francisco went nuts. The media went nuts. I walk out of this thing and there's 5-6 reporters calling me. There's people like blowing up my phone, blowing up my assistant's phone, blowing up our company. Like it is absolutely crazy. And none of the articles, none of the news coverage is good. It's terrible. It's like Big Brother's coming to San Francisco, and like everyone's blaming me. Like I'm like, my career is over. I'm screwed. Like, what do I do now? But a couple minutes later, I got a call from the developers, and they're like, hey, we're gonna come down. We've never had press like this.
Wow.
And we ended up working out a deal with them, and me and a partner went in and started developing this with them, and it became legislation in Alberta, Canada, and now that company is the biggest ID scanning company in the world.
Amazing.
But what was interesting about that was just watching, I don't think people realize the amount of information that's in your ID. I mean, it's not just your name and address, it's DMV records, it's all kinds of stuff. So when you walk into a casino here and they're scanning your ID, or you scan your ID in a normal place, like, you really don't know what they're taking off of that. And Canada is really strict. Each province has different rules. Like, the server has to be in like a high secure facility where you get weighed in and weighed out when you walk out. It has bank encryption. You're only allowed to keep like very limited data, and then you can keep it for, in one province it's 24 hours, one it's a month. And but privacy people are definitely the most intense. Right. And I think that was a big portion of why I stayed off of social media. And I stopped doing any kind of interviews or anything at that point, because, man, after they just...
I'm breaking your cherry, man.
Yeah, it's been a while, so...
You said the ID scanner, this fascinated me, has saved some people's lives, especially the gang people, right? Could you explain how?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The reason that this became such a big thing in Canada, I mean, we don't have the same issues that Canada has. Canada has a massive gang problem. And, people always, every time I tell people this, they're like, oh, Canada has gangs? But Canada has really intense gangs. I mean, they have a gang called the United Nations. They have every ethnic gang in the world pretty much is there. The Hells Angels are huge. They run Canada.
Wow.
Even now, I think it's different. They don't come out in colors. They own all the buildings downtown.
Wow.
No. So but what would happen is if you're a known gang member, you're not allowed in a bar in Canada. So these guys would come in colors or come dressed down, and the doorman wouldn't let them in. They would leave and then drive by and shoot them. And then there was a bunch of other incidents where people would be killed inside of nightclubs. And because of the security technology at the time, you have surveillance cameras, but it's low light. There's flashing lights. Yeah. And then how do you identify the person? Like, they just see like a guy in dark clothes like stab somebody. And then how do you find out what happens? They never find them. So in Alberta, once this ID scanner went in, it almost eliminated that kind of violence. And it's kind of crazy how it happens. You just walk, you get scanned when you walk in. If it's a gang member, it tells the doorman it is, but it says don't stop him. Right. And then he walks in, and then 15 minutes later, the gang task force comes with like 18 guys in combat gear almost.
Wow.
And they walk up to the guy with the computer and they're like, "Oh, this is you. Pay your bill and get the fuck out."
Just for being part of a gang?
Yeah, being part of a gang. Like, you also can't leave the country.
When you're part of a gang?
Yeah, so if you're a known gang member in Canada, you can't leave the country.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I mean, from my perspective, I think that, obviously they have different rights, but
yeah,
I don't think you could do that in America at this
it's like
point.
being a felon in America, right? You can't leave.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't let you go in a bar.
Right. Wow. Back to your events, though. You were able to collect millions of email addresses.
Yeah. So over the years, we've collected just an enormous
You
amount.
showed me it. It was something mind-boggling. I think you were like the biggest client on Eventbrite at one point. So walk me through that whole come up.
Well, it was when Eventbrite started. Again, this is around the 2008, 2009 times, maybe maybe a little bit before. But being in San Francisco, that's right where all that stuff started. And they were spending tons and tons of money on marketing. And we just jumped on board and
right timing.
Yeah, right timing. And we obviously were doing a lot of events,
right? So
it just worked out.
Yeah. What were some of the craziest things that have happened at your venues?
Oh man, I think the hardest part about being in that industry is you have to watch a lot of violence, and people get drunk, they act crazy. I mean, there was a period in San Francisco where I was on first name basis with probably every Russian gangster in the city, and it was it wasn't by choice. It was like it was by default.
Right.
They would come to the club all the time, and I had to maintain a relationship with them so they didn't.
Because they spend big, so you want to keep them as a customer.
Yeah, but they spend big, but they'd also get in fights, and really bad fights. And so if I didn't have a relationship with them, they didn't respect us. So, it was one of those things where I definitely had a bulletproof vest in my bag for days that I wasn't comfortable going home.
Yeah.
But I watched a lot of violence, and I mean, even after I stepped out of that industry, I couldn't even watch UFC fights for a long time.
Really? Why?
Well, I watched these kids get stomped on the ground, and you couldn't stop them once they get across the street. We can't step in.
So you had PTSD almost.
Oh man, and every time, even now, when I see the guy and he's knocked out and the guy's punching him, I got to get up and leave. I hate watching that. Yeah,
that's traumatizing.
And it was one of those things. No matter what would happen, I would walk outside, and whoever they were throwing out would walk over to me and punch me in the face. All the security would all laugh at me because it just happens. It was always girls, but it was like the funniest. It didn't matter if there was police there.
Yeah, it was a running joke.
Oh yeah, it didn't matter.
You ever have to get in a physical fight with a guy?
Yeah. I mean, it happened all the time.
I can't even picture you like doing that.
It was always in defense of other people.
Right.
So I was never the aggressor. I hate watching people get hurt. And it was one of those things, like, even though I was running that club, I would go into the fight because I had, 8 security making sure I was safe.
Okay.
So when I went in, it was like, I would try to negotiate with people while they're fighting, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. But it worked a lot of the times, and sometimes it didn't.
Wow. How are people sneaking weapons in these clubs?
I mean, the thing is, it's really hard to get all the guns. I mean, we weren't really using metal detectors. We were patting down at some point, but most of the places were we were relying on the clientele to be a little bit more high end. And obviously that's changed over the years. Right. But I mean, everybody puts metal detectors in, but man, I mean, they sneak it in in their girl's purse. A lot of the times, like, they want the guys for guns, but they don't think that the girl's bringing in the gun.
Right.
That's the majority of the time that comes in. It's with the girl.
You said you had Drake pull up one night, right?
Oh yeah, we did an event with Drake at San Francisco City Hall, and it was completely crazy. I mean, it was after a concert. It was about 3,000 people there, and the sheriff's department in San Francisco was doing security. So I knew we were in trouble right off the bat, because when he walks in, they frisked him.
The own mayor? Dude.
Yeah. So that didn't go over well. And then he goes to the section, and they kick out all of these tables. Like all these tables are spending like $10,000, $20,000 to sit next to Drake, and the sheriff's department kicks out all of the tables, and they're standing around him like, man, the manager comes over and he's like, man, we're not into this. This is terrible. We don't feel safe with all the police.
Yeah.
And so he left, and then the San Francisco Sheriff's Department lines up outside in riot gear.
Jesus.
Like, they got guys walking around with like battlefield gear on, with AR-15s, and it's like,
bruh. Just because Drake left, he got pissed?
Well, I mean, no, but they were doing it to start with. That was part of the problem. I mean, they were expecting a riot or something, and they created this situation. That's
insane. What other celebrities pulled up and it just got wild?
I mean, I think that was the wildest. I mean, there's been a lot. I did a show with Lady Gaga in 2008.
Whoa, that's her peak.
Yeah, well, I mean, she hadn't blown up at that.
Oh, that's before peak.
Yeah, it was right before she blew up, and she performed with two other people on a subwoofer.
On a what?
On a subwoofer, on a speaker.
Oh.
And she was absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
I mean, the funnier part, I got so much flack for booking her. Everyone like laughed at me, and then 2 months later, she's like the biggest thing on the planet.
You texted all those guys, yo, you still laughing? Like, that's funny.
Steve Aoki used to be a DJ right when he started. He used to be a resident DJ for me.
Oh, nice. Walk me through the residency model, because I know that's big in Vegas. Is it big in other cities?
It is. I mean, it's just somebody that you book monthly. When I started working with Steve, like he was famous already, but he wasn't famous for being a DJ. And that was another guy that, like, there was a lot of DJs that kind of talked about him.
Really?
But man, Steve was the best guy. Like, he was the nicest guy. He was really good.
Wow, yeah, I can't imagine talking shit about him. He just seems like such a nice guy.
They didn't think he was a real DJ at the time.
Oh, okay. So they were jealous.
They were jealous. Yeah. That's absolutely what it was. It was jealousy.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, it was cool. DJ AM used to play for us a lot. Mm-hmm. Who else? DJ Premier. That was pretty interesting. Nice. Grandmaster Flash.
Okay.
I've had a couple really, really interesting conversations with him. So he's really, really intense, but the same breath he's like, right.
Right. So I want to talk about something insane. You are the only person that I know that has been able to beat the Vegas reward system.
Yeah, so
I got to hear this.
When I moved to Vegas, I didn't really gamble at all, and then one of these times I actually got a flat tire. I just bought a new car. I clipped a curb on the way into Cosmo to go to a meeting, and my tire was flat, and I was on the second level, and of course there's no spare tire. And
oh, you were inside the parking garage?
I was inside the parking garage.
So you couldn't even leave.
I couldn't even leave. So the tow truck guy comes and he's like, "Oh, we need a flatbed, but we can't bring a flatbed in." And so I got pissed, walked away. My phone dies, and so I start playing blackjack, and I end up making $7,500 out of $200, and it just started me gambling a little bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe like a year and a half later, I went through this terrible breakup, and I started gambling on December 31st, and I went into this bender where I ended up spending about $30,000. But in that 24 hours, I went up and down, $400,000 or $500,000.
Jeez.
Not at one time. I mean, it was obviously
Spread out.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I was gambling for 24 hours.
Yeah.
But what happened was I was, because of that, and because the reward system resets every year, I was in the top 20 gamblers at Caesars Entertainment for maybe a few hours or a day.
On January 1st. Yeah.
And in the same breath, like I got the highest gambling card at Caesars, but because I got it on the 31st, and then I got more points on the 1st. I got it for 2 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So in 2019, they gave me almost 300 comp hotel rooms.
That's insane. And those are like 300 a night. Usually.
Oh yeah. And it didn't just stop there. It was so much stuff. I mean, they were calling me about concerts, like one of the first people to get calls about tickets.
Yeah. Is that a new thing? Because they give out the Vegas Golden Knights tickets now, the football ones.
At the time, like I mean, this is 2018. This is pre-COVID. So
they just started.
Yeah,
wow.
it was pretty wild. And for this next year, I mean, I got so many benefits, and then I would barely play at all. I mean, I probably spent like $2,000 or $3,000 after.
Wow. Because it lasts a year, right?
It would last. I had 2 years because right when they reset, it all goes to zero on the 31st.
So on the 31st this year, you're gonna go back and play again.
So that's the thing. It worked. I went through a whole year. Eventually they got a little mad and kicked me out.
Because you're not gambling enough.
Yeah, I wasn't gambling at all.
Yeah.
And I was still getting comp rooms and free everything. And
man, the comp rooms alone. I mean, there's so many conferences here that you're just saving so much.
Oh man, and it was cool too. They had these lounges. They're called diamond lounges. I don't think they have them anymore. But they would open at like noon or 2 o'clock, and they would stay open till midnight.
Wow.
And I could bring 4 people in there. It was a open premium bar. They served dinner. They served food twice.
Sign me up for that.
Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, I instantly moved all of my meetings there, and then I met a bunch of really big investors because they're big gamblers.
Wow. Yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. Big gamblers and people with a lot of money that invest.
Yeah. So after this happened, I kind of realized, I met a bunch of people that were actually living in the casinos, and they were living off of their points,
just taking advantage.
And one of the ways that they did it was they would give they'd get a bunch of copies of their card, and they would give them to all their friends. So when their friends come into town, they're gambling and they're accumulating points for them, and then they're getting to
because they don't ID you when you show the card, right?
I mean, I think the only time that you could get in trouble for that is if you win
and cash out. Yeah.
I mean, it was a little different for me because I was at a level with Caesars where when I put my card in, a host would come over and shake my hand.
Wow. You were on a first name basis with them.
it was pretty weird at first.
Yeah, that's sick.
But
did you have your own host you could text to?
I did initially, but I never took advantage of that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until when COVID happened, the shutdown happened, I lived at Veer at Aria, and it was very, very crazy because the whole strip shut down, all the casinos shut down. And the thing about Vegas isn't designed to have the casino shut down.
Not at all.
The security structure is designed for each of the casinos to police their area, or the police will be inside of the casinos.
Right.
So when the casinos are shut down, the police are in the street. So for the police to get from the street to the sidewalk is like a 15-minute.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they have to drive around all those barriers.
Wow. Oh, because they shut down even the entrances, you're saying? Right, because a lot of the times you got to drive through those to get somewhere,
Yeah, so it was like being out here with Mad Max. It was crazy. There was like bicyclers going down. It was
dead. I remember looking out and seeing just nothing.
I mean, even for me, I used to jog down the strip, and there was a point where I stopped because it was too dangerous,
too scary. man.
Yeah, and then but what happened after that is I started going to, the only things that opened were casinos.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I started
Gambling
again, and the same thing happened.
Yeah.
And I currently have a one of the highest player cards at Cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
And Cosmo has a really valuable card.
It's probably the best high value card, honestly, with what they give.
Well, it's really cool, man, because the other casinos tier match it.
Oh, smart.
So, and right after I got that card, I got a platinum card with MGM.
Right.
I have an ace card with Resorts World. Even the Win matched it at one point.
Wow. Yeah, I used to have the Win Black. That thing was sexy, man.
Yeah, and then it also is attached to the Marriott, so you get a high level Marriott card, and then I would go and through MGM I got a high level Hyatt card.
Sick. So you are just status matching everywhere.
Oh man, and what got even better about that was all of those groups have different rewards that they're attached to. So MGM has a deal with Southwest. And obviously Hyatt, and you can transfer your points.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so
wow.
when you get an MGM room, if you have your Southwest account attached, you get points for that.
Dude, I wish I knew that because I've gotten so many MGM and Cosmo rooms.
Oh man, I've cleaned up on that. It's crazy.
Yeah, so now you're flying for free too on top of it.
Flying for free. I mean, Cosmopolitan gives a ton of good benefits.
Wow.
All of these places, all of these cards now, it's free parking, free valet.
Yeah. The valet is clutch.
Yeah, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's
no, it's a lot mentally because that walk from Cosmo lot, dude, it's a long walk.
It's a long walk
to the restaurants. You're one of the best networkers I know. You just came back from Dubai. You were with the craziest people in the crypto space. How did you get so good at networking?
Well, I think that I think necessity, but
yeah.
I think being in the nightclub industry for so long, I think that's all I was really doing. I mean, at some point, after a certain amount of time, I wasn't really doing any of the operational stuff. I was just hanging out with the VIPs and making sure they'd come back and
right.
building relationships. And again, I mean, we were meeting people like Peter Thiel and
so your advice to people would be put yourself in a situation where high level people are going to, basically.
Yeah, and nightlife and that type of stuff is a good place to network as long as you're just not there to drink and party.
That's where people mess up. I think they get drunk and then
they don't realize like who they're next to.
Right.
You got people coming in that you couldn't get a meeting with.
Yeah, because if they're buying a table, they're spending $5-10K. They got money.
For sure. I mean, every time you go out is a great networking opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously there's a lot of other ones now. And as in 2008, in those times, I mean, it was a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we moved to Vegas, I mean, Vegas is the best place to do that though.
So many clubs here, man.
There's so many clubs and everyone comes out and they go to the same places.
Yeah.
They always end up at Excess. They end up at Marquee.
Now it's Zouk.
Yeah, Zouk, one of the Tau Group places.
Yeah.
Which I guess is everything now.
Yeah. So what's your strategy? Say you pull up to a club, like, are you just going up to tables? How do you approach things?
I mean that's the thing. I usually only go in now when I'm with somebody that wants to go out.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning it was just get your foot in the door at one table and then you start networking with all the other tables.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I don't go out to clubs, but that's one thing I would consider doing. I mean, there's some good people there.
Yeah, it's hard for me now.
Yeah.
To do that. I much prefer networking events.
Yeah.
And any kind of business or crypto related events. But I mean I think the other key is you got to travel.
Yeah.
I mean you can't just sit in one place. You can't not move. You got to have movement or
Absolutely.
You're not doing anything.
How do you balance dating with your lifestyle? Because you travel almost more than anyone I know, I think, and you're super successful as well. So do you get a lot of interesting people coming your way?
Well, it's dating's really hard, and I think that that living in Vegas and dating is extremely hard. You know, I don't think people realize this, but there's like 30,000 escorts in Vegas.
There's that many?
Yeah.
Jeez. I know they chill in the casinos at night, right?
They chill in the casinos at night, but you know, it's one of those things. It's like at some point, it's, you know, when I first was here, I couldn't tell the difference between normal.
Yeah, I hear that story all the time.
Oh man. And so I would just always assume every girl was an escort, so I wouldn't talk to them.
I've heard stories of they're hooking up in the casino. They go upstairs, $500. What?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's just Vegas is also. I mean, it's changed in the past few years since you moved here, especially. It's a little different because there's more of a community.
Yeah,
it was very transient for a while. Right. So it was one of those things. It's really hard to date here, and you know, moving to Miami's the same thing.
That might be even tougher. Miami.
It is tougher.
It's more materialistic. The girls all speak Spanish.
Yeah,
each one has its problems, I guess.
But yeah, you know, dating's really tough, man. You have to decide. I mean, I know some people have a good relationship balance with work, but you know, I'm not really that good at it. I've really had to sacrifice a lot of relationships for the movement.
Right. So you don't think there's a balance? It's just all in.
No, there is a balance. I think the best thing to do is to find one really solid girl that can hold you down and be at your house when you come home and you know, support you emotionally and you know.
I attribute a lot of my success to that. I was lucky and found that early, you know.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things. I think when I went into this gambling spree is because I lost one of those.
Right.
And
the cause of that was you just working too much, basically.
Yeah, it was me working too much.
That's always what it is with entrepreneurs. I noticed we choose the work, and then we don't want to balance the time out with them.
Well, and now it's terrible because I just, my tolerance is so small that like I mean, any little thing I'm out.
Yeah, they say it gets tougher the older you get, right?
Oh yeah, it's definitely
because the dating pool, they start getting worried in the 30s about having kids.
Well, that's the problem now. Now everyone wants to have kids.
They want to rush into it.
To be fair, like I'm not ready for that. So
right.
I don't want to deceive somebody and pretend like I'm gonna do that.
We just had someone come on. He was, I think, 61. He just had a kid.
Yeah, I'm on that path right now.
I was like, I haven't heard of that late, but to each their own, you know.
No, you know, I mean, I have some really amazing girls in my life that are friends, but you know, like I said, dating's really difficult, and I think once you realize that isn't the focus, you're able to build more genuine relationships.
Absolutely. So you believe guys and girls can be friends?
Yeah, I mean, they can. I mean, obviously, I think there's always some sort of sexual tension or some you know, something could happen at any point. So I'm just saying, like, there is it's. I don't know if I would feel really comfortable with my wife having a bunch of guys that are her friends that I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, there's a limit for sure. Because just human instinct, right?
Yeah. But I think, well, that's exactly it. It's human instinct.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think guys and girls can be friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you though. My girl, she can't have like 10 guy friends.
No, for sure not.
Yeah. She has a gay guy friend, which I'm cool with, but
yeah, I mean, I have a couple of people in my life that are, you know, I look at as brothers and like I'm comfortable with them.
Right. Yeah, that's different for sure. But what's next for you, man?
Well, you know, it's funny because we actually developed something that was kind of it's kind of a play on this casino rewards system.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's a blockchain based rewards program that is it's kind of a mixture between the concierge you get with American Express and then, you know, the casino rewards program from the Cosmo. And but it's blockchain based. It's our development company is probably the world leader in financial security when it comes to currency. They make the security features for currency in 80 countries. It's a German company. It's been quite an experience. Ironically, I met them at CES last year.
Nice.
So I wasn't even thinking I was going to come to CES, and I ran into them there, and they've completely changed my life when it.
Conferences, man. That one was overwhelming though. I didn't know where the hell to go. Like, I think I even met.
No, we did, but the thing is, like, most of it wasn't good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the actual conference wasn't good, but just man, I met 2 or 3 relationships out of that are.
That's all it takes.
Oh man,
just meet 1 or 2 guys every conference.
Yeah,
change your life.
And that's the justification for going out and doing that stuff. I showed up every day. I wore a suit every day, even when I was tired, even when I didn't want to, even when I didn't. I met them on the last day.
Wow.
I couldn't walk for a week afterwards because
it was so spread out. Yeah, we walked like 3 miles that day, I think.
For sure.
We took the Tesla loop. Yeah, that was a good day. Man, where can people find you?
Well, you could check out our new project. It's key2.io. Like I said, it's the key to each city. So it's a membership rewards program that is your actual key to each city, where we're going to launch during Formula One in Vegas in November. In obviously Vegas, we're doing New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami, and then after that it's London, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Paris, Geneva, and South America.
Love it, man. Thanks for watching, guys. Digital Social Hour. I'll see you next time.